Hey guys, it's your girl Heather and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to give you this berry mauve look created using the original Jaclyn Hill palette that launched in 2014 with Morphe. So if you want to see how I got this look, just keep watching. We're gonna get started. I'm gonna do my brows and I'm gonna speed up this process a little bit, just because we all know brows can be the most tedious part of a makeup tutorial. I'm still using my NYX micro brow pencil in Espresso and then my City Color powder that I filled them in with, and so you'll see that here shortly. Alright, so next up we're going to go ahead and do our foundation routine. I have the Maybelline Fit Me foundation for the matte and poreless in shade 322. I like this foundation. It kind of leaves me more hydrated than the Superstay would, especially when I use it with my Real Technique sponge. I had to shake it down a little bit. Your girl's running low, so it's time to re-up on this. I'm going to apply that directly to the sponge. And then just start to pounce that on the face a little bit. During this process, you need to make sure you are getting an even application. So start with one side of the face. I like to start with my right side and then move on to my left side, and then my forehead is usually last, but apparently not today. So we'll make sure that that's evenly applied down the entire side of the face, one side at a time. Just going to reapply a little bit more to finish up the left side of my face. Slowed it down here for you guys just a little bit so you can really pay attention to the technique and how we use Real Technique sponges or any beauty sponge that you might be using. I do bring it a little bit under the chin and back towards the ear. You just want to be sure that you're capturing all of those spots on the skin and then up to the hairline. So even though I put on my head wrap for the edges of my hair, I kind of push it back until I can see my hairline so I can make sure I'm getting all the way back there. You do not want to look like you have a mask on. Alright, so next up we have our Tarte Shapetape. This is in shade medium. Previously I think I was medium sand, but when I went to get it restocked at Ulta, they were out. And I prefer the medium sand because it's a shade just a little bit lighter than this one. This one doesn't highlight me as well, but it still does the job of the full coverage, so I'll use it. I'm just going to take that underneath the eye and then down the sides of the nose and just a little bit underneath each nostril, then down the middle of the nose, a little bit up on the forehead, and a dab on the chin. So now I'm just going to go ahead and blend that all out. Starting on the chin, and then I'll take it up the nose into the center of the forehead. You may have a different technique, but for some reason I feel like blending all of that together first leaves a good base for how my under eye will look and where I need to take that highlighted concealer up to the eye and the temple. And so everything is nice and blended by the time you're done. I do take this on top of my lids. It applies a good base for my eyeshadows when I'm ready to put those down. And then we're going to set with the Wet n Wild Caramel Toffee, and I'm going to use the banana shade in that. And yes, I have hit pan. I procrastinate to restock on makeup just because, you know, if it's not completely gone, then I'm going to keep using it. And so I'm going to take that on the concealer side of my Real Technique sponge, and I get a pretty decent amount, not a cakey amount, but just a decent amount to really set that concealer. With age comes beauty, but also comes fine lines underneath the eyes. So I do have some pretty fine lines under there, and I must make sure I get in the creases of those under eyes and on the lids, especially in the corner. So I'll take that on both sides and bring it up to the sides of the nose so that it naturally contours the nose, and even on the eyelids. And so that sets that concealer that I used and applies very well when I'm ready for shadow. Take it on the chin and then up the nose and on the forehead in the center where I had that concealer. Again, gotta make sure those lines are filled with powder. I don't typically have drier under eyes like some people complain about, so it's okay. I get drier along the patches of my cheeks, to be honest. And so I'm just going to dust all that excess off. Make sure it's nice and blended before I go in with my setting powder for the rest of my foundation. Alright, so I'm going to use the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Setting Powder in shade 30. And I'm going to use it on the foundation side of the Real Technique sponge. And I'm just going to dip it in. You guys saw me do this on the last tutorial. If not, please click it below. And I like to just press it into the skin on the face to make sure it covers and it really sets that foundation. Now I rarely have to do this with the Maybelline Superstay foundation because that's already a matte foundation. This one is, it claims to be matte, but it doesn't keep me matte very long. I have a very oily T-zone, so I need to make sure I actually set this one really good. But I like this for my lighter days. So I have this fluffy Real Techniques brush, and I'm just going to dust all of that off to make sure it's even and blended, and that the tone overall, the canvas, the base looks really good and even. You really want to make sure you're doing this. And I apply it, that powder, kind of up over the highlighting powder that I had underneath my eyes, because you don't want to look like you have 2 scoops of white powder underneath your eyes. Alright, now we're going to go in with that contour shade from the Wet n Wild contour palette and use this fluffy angled brush. I've had this brush for so long I couldn't even tell you where it's from. And we're going to take that right into the contour areas of the face. Now I do feel like I use this also as a bronzer, just to bronze and up the face and bring some color back to the face. But initially I concentrated in the areas that I'm going to contour, and you start your contour just above the ear, the top of the ear, and it comes down into an angle. And then I take that up over the forehead, because you know us light skinned girls have big foreheads, okay? And so I'm going to take that up over the forehead just to kind of tone that area down, bring some depth to the face. And I'll take that same shade along the sides of my nose to give it a little bit more of a contour effect. Next up, we're going to go in with this soft pinky mauve blush from Wet n Wild. Sorry, I blanked out there. And I'm going to use this Lisa Frank brush I got in an Ipsy bag a while ago. And I'm just going to lightly take that on the apples of the cheeks. I don't like a heavy blush. I love the apricots and the more orangey tones, or the sun glowy tones, we'll say. So whenever I'm using a peachy or pink color, I go very lightly. I forgot to tap the under chin and underneath that neck area for that contour, so I was just taking that back in. Alright, so I'm going to use this Luxie brush, this kind of a domed shape brush, and I'm going to take it with my highlighter from Colourpop by MakeupShayla, or vice versa, in Pose. This is that rosy coppery tone highlighter that she came out with, and it's a loose pigment, so you might see some of that pigment like fly across the camera here. But I'm going to take that just over the apples of my cheeks, and then I'll take it like down my nose and to the temple sides of the forehead. To be honest, there are days where I could take this all over my face. It's just so light and it doesn't like overwhelm your makeup. I absolutely love it, but for this purpose of this video, we're gonna stay humble with it. Alright, next up we're going to do some Wet n Wild natural finish setting spray. And then we're going to go in with the Jaclyn Hill original Morphe palette that came out in 2014. And this is a well-loved palette, guys. So I'm just going to take this soft mauve pink. It's almost like a pale pinky purpley mauve color, and that's going to be my transition shade. So I'm going to set that right above the eyeball into that crease section, and windshield wiper motions back and forth. Jaclyn Hill will say this all the time in her videos. I'm not stealing it, I'm giving her credit, but she takes this back and forth. And again, blending is always key when you're doing eyeshadow. So I'm not going to take this too high, like to get up on the brow, but I'm going to take it high enough to where it looks like I have more residential space on the eyelid. I have a little bit of what you call hooded lids, mostly seen in the Asian culture, but my eyelids do this a little bit. So to give that illusion that I have more space than I do, I bring my transition shades just a little higher before I highlight the brow bone and go in with any darker shades. I intentionally did not speed up this part because this is the part that most people want to see in a makeup tutorial anyway, usually the eyes, and maybe I'll consider actually skipping the base steps in my next one. But you guys comment below and tell me what you want to see, because I'm new to this makeup thing. You guys know, if you watch my channel, I do a lot of different lifestyle posts and videos with my husband, and then, you know, we're shooting for the kids, or, you know, I'm editing for the kids. So just let me know what you want to see next. I do plan on doing my weekend natural glowy look. That's just, you know, just to give you guys a look like when you're on the go. You know, sometimes we don't have time for all of the major smokies and blown outs. So now we're going to take this deeper mauve shade. I love this shade. And these are all matte colors that I'm going in with. And so I'm going to take that on this kind of semi fluffy brush. It's a round brush, great for blending, and I'm going to take that in the crease, but just a little lower than I did the transition shade. And I'm going to concentrate it on the outside of the eye, and then bring that all the way into the inner corner just to really kind of blow out this mauve look. Take that right into the crease. I'm going to really concentrate it in there. Now this is not yet the deepest shade I'm going to go in with, so I'm really concentrating this to be more of a guide for that deeper shade that I'm going to go in with. And I do like to concentrate it on the inner corner. It kind of elongates the nose a little bit and makes it look a little slimmer, makes your eye sockets look a little deeper as well. This can get tedious, but sometimes you gotta see your looks from different angles, which is why I actually had to pick up the mirror. And I'm like, is it good enough? You know, is the lighting even? Let me double check. And I'm sure we all have that one eye that just like gets on our last nerve. That's like, why can't you be as good as your sister? Right? We all know we have that eyebrow, but sometimes it's that eyelid, you know, and it applies perfectly on one side and not as perfectly on the other, and it's like we're using the same hand, same pressure, or so we think, right? So I took a little fluffier brush with that original mauve color, and I'm just blending out those edges. We want to make sure we don't have any harsh, you know, solid lines of indentation or the blending of the original shadows. And I'm going to take this now synthetic thin flat brush, and I'm going to go in with that Perception palette by MakeupShayla. She collabed with Colourpop. And we're going to take this mauve pink shade, but it's a shimmer, and it's so pretty. Actually, it's not a shimmer, it's more of a metallic, and it's so pretty. I absolutely love this shade on the lid, and it's so pigmented. And I did spray my brush before I dipped into it, just to make it more pigmented, to make it really pick up that color. I believe MakeupShayla's palette is still available on the Colourpop website. I'm not sure, but you can check. So I'm going to take that from the inner corner and almost to the outer lid, almost there, not all the way, but just about. But I'm really going to concentrate it starting from that inner corner. I'm like, is it highlight? Okay, yeah, that's good. I'm just gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh yeah, it's pigmented. That's why I smiled. I was like, oh yeah, this is looking good. going to take this fluffy Real Techniques brush, and I'm going to take it on that darkest deep purple shade. It's really not even a purple, I swear guys, it's like a mauve, kind of a burnt pink if you will. But we're going to put that on the outer corner and bring it up just a little bit beyond the crease section. And yes, I like to pull my skin taut a little bit to give me the illusion of that V so that I have a nice guide. You do not have to do this, and most people would scream at me doing this. But I'm just gonna bring that from the inner corner and kind of give it that nice V shape, okay? And I did bring it up a little bit to where the crease is, but not too high. I'm like, let me get a smaller mirror, like a smaller, lightweight mirror. And so blending, blending, blending is the key. I didn't re-add any product on the brush. I'm just blending out what was already on the brush. It's always better to add more product than to initially place too much product. And so I'm gonna tap the product in really well first before I start buffing it. Alright, now we're going to repeat those same steps on the bottom lash line. I'm going to start with the lightest mauve shade first, and then we'll go in with the second deepest shade and then that final deep shade. When Jaclyn Hill came out with this palette, she didn't name any of the shadows back then, but it was such a beautiful palette, and it was like all purpose, and she launched this palette twice, I believe. Like, she launched it right before Christmas, and then she launched it again like the following March. And so I had to wait the second round to actually get my hands on it. And comment below if you've received or you are getting her Vault palette. That one ran out of stock before I could get my hands on it. They do sell it individually at Ulta. And no, this is not sponsored by her. But I've been following Jaclyn for quite a few years now. Just got a lot of makeup tips from her, so shout out to Jaclyn. And so yeah, I love this palette. You can see a couple of the shades I've already hit pan on if you remember when I held up the palette. So, and yeah, it's still good. It's very pigmented, very creamy, not a lot of fallout. I love it. So I'm glad that I actually have one of her originals. I do have the second palette, so comment below if you want to see me do a look with her white palette that she launched. When was that? Earlier this year. And yeah, if I get the Vault, maybe I'll do a look using the Vault palette. Next up, we're going to use this Wet n Wild black Kohl pencil, and I'm going to give a little line to the top line and my waterline, and then I will blend out the top eyeliner with a very, very small smudge brush, and I'll buff out the bottom liner as well. The sun's trying to play me right now. Trying to go down a little bit. And it's still like early afternoon when I film this, but it's all good. So I'm going to take this flat definer brush and I'm going to buff out the bottom Kohl line. If you guys, you know what I just did there? I wear contacts, and so every now and then the shadow wants to come up into my eyeball, okay, and smear around my contacts. So I literally have to like dab it out, okay? Let me know if you guys ever have that problem. So that small smudger brush, I'm going to use that to further define my top eyeliner. I do use gel liner, but in a moment like this, or when you guys are just on the go and you don't have time to perfect your gel liner, use a Kohl pencil and then smudge it out with a small definer brush. I don't ever have to really set this Wet n Wild Kohl pencil. It doesn't really run. Especially because I have on a good mattified base. But if you have like oily eyes or anything like that, you might want to set this with some black eye shadow on top of it. I gave it a little bitty wing, and now we're just going to go in with some L'Oreal Voluminous mascara in black. And I hardly ever wear mascara anymore lately. Like seriously, I hardly ever have time. But when I do it, I like it. And then I'm going to use this Milani, I want to say it's Milani, I'll leave it in the description, but it's a Milani Mauve lip liner, sorry about that. And so I'm just going to line my lips like normal. Yeah, I was like, let me make sure what brand this is. I think it's Milani. Little lip pencil. And then we'll top this off with MakeupShayla's Colourpop collab lipstick. And this one is in Quickie, I believe. I'll double check and put it down below. I believe these are still available too on Colourpop. They're very creamy lipsticks, and they do last, I would give them about 4 hours, maybe longer if you use a liner underneath. And I'm just going to take that just back over it to make sure it's nice and blended. And that's it, guys. I'm just gonna take my edges headband off and kind of tossing my hair around a little bit, get ready to go out the door. This is a quick on-the-go look. It honestly did not take me that long at all. My hair was already pre-curled. I'm trying it straight. I haven't tried my hair straight in about 9 months. If you follow me, you know I'm usually super curly, but every now and then curly girls need a break. And so I hadn't seen its length or anything like that. I'm not doing like length checks or, you know, waiting for a specific length of my hair. I'm just kind of going with the flow, you know. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a like, a thumbs up, and comment down below what you would like to see next. And thanks so much for watching.